Sometimes, what haunts us most is the silence that follows a scream. I'm Crime Uncoded, and today, I want to take you into a story that begins with music and ends with a mother's worst nightmare. A case that feels like it should have ended quickly. After all, how can someone vanish from a packed concert? But what happened to Morgan Dana Harrington in 2009 is the kind of story that unravels everything we think we know about safety, fate, and the thin line between ordinary nights and irreversible moments. She was a bright 20-year-old, full of ambition. A daughter, a friend, a student. She went to a Metallica concert with friends and didn't come home. This isn't fiction. It's real. And as you'll see, it's far more disturbing than it first appears. Morgan Dana Harrington was the kind of person who seemed lit from within. Her smile wasn't just warm, it was electric. Friends described her as magnetic, full of life, curious to a fault. She had a sharp mind and a soft heart. Someone who could debate Nietzsche and then laugh at a bad reality show 5 minutes later. She was born on July 24, 1989 in Charlottesville, Virginia, a small-town girl with big dreams. Her parents, Gil and Dan Harrington, adored her. She had this intense presence, intelligent, vibrant, with a hint of rebellion. She wanted to leave a mark on the world, and she was well on her way. By 2009, Morgan was in her junior year at Virginia Tech, studying education. She wanted to teach, wanted to shape young minds. But she also loved music. Not just as a casual fan, but deeply. She'd go to shows, obsess over lyrics, and always seemed to find meaning in the melodies that others might miss. That's why the Metallica concert in Charlottesville on October 17, 2009 was such a big deal for her. She'd been talking about it for weeks. That night, she dressed up in a Pantera shirt, a miniskirt, and boots. She looked confident, fierce, like someone ready to take in the night. She was going with friends, 3 of them to be exact. They prepped, pre-gamed a bit, like college students do. Laughed in the mirror, snapped blurry phone pics. Morgan was excited, texting people about how thrilled she was to see Metallica live. It should have been a perfect night. Loud music, good company, unforgettable memories. But what happened at the John Paul Jones Arena was anything but perfect. And somewhere in the noise, the excitement, and the chaos, Morgan slipped away. That's where everything fractures. That's where the music stops. At some point during the concert, Morgan separated from her friends. What exactly happened in those moments has never been completely clear. Accounts suggest she may have left her seat to go to the bathroom or to get a drink. Something completely ordinary. But when her friends looked around, she wasn't there. What we do know is this: Morgan somehow ended up outside the arena. And once she was out, she wasn't allowed back in. That's one of the more bizarre twists in this case. Despite holding a ticket, Morgan was denied re-entry to the John Paul Jones Arena. The security staff followed a strict no re-entry policy. So there she was, alone, in the dark, without a jacket, without her friends, without her phone. According to witnesses, Morgan approached several people outside. She was visibly distressed. Some said she was asking for a ride. Others claimed she was disoriented or possibly intoxicated. But no one knew where her friends were, and her friends didn't know she was gone until it was too late. Her phone was later found in the parking lot, shattered. Whether it was dropped or intentionally destroyed has never been proven. But without it, Morgan was completely cut off. Surveillance footage captured a glimpse of her walking across the bridge that connects the arena to the Copley Road parking lot, a place she had no reason to be. It was dark, quiet, and out of the way, and it was the last time she was seen alive. There's something chilling about that, about the idea of being so close to thousands of people, music echoing through the walls, lights flashing, and still being utterly, horrifyingly alone. She had vanished into a void that shouldn't have existed. Let's take a step back for a moment. What's your take on this so far? Drop your theory in the comments. I read them all. And if you're still with me, don't forget to subscribe. The story only deepens from here. When the concert ended, Morgan's friends assumed they'd find her waiting outside. But she wasn't there. They tried calling her, texting her. Nothing. Panic hadn't fully set in yet, but something didn't feel right. By the next morning, Morgan's parents were contacted, and that's when the slow, agonizing descent into nightmare began. Gil and Dan Harrington reported their daughter missing. Within hours, flyers were printed, police were alerted, and the search began in earnest. Charlottesville wasn't a sprawling metropolis. It was a tight-knit community. But suddenly, it felt like an endless maze. Volunteers combed through wooded areas, drainage ditches, and abandoned buildings. Search dogs were brought in. Her image, blonde hair, bright smile, was plastered on light poles, community boards, and news screens. But there were no signs of Morgan. Then came the first haunting detail. Her purse, found near the Lanigan athletic field, some distance from where she was last seen. Inside were her belongings, except her phone, which had already been recovered earlier. For days, then weeks, the Harringtons pleaded with the public. They held press conferences, vigils, walked the streets with posters. But every lead seemed to go nowhere. The investigation stalled. Rumors began to swirl. Had she gotten into a car with a stranger? Had she been lured away? Had someone been watching her that night? Theories multiplied, but answers did not. And in that absence of clarity, something even more unsettling crept in. The realization that Morgan might not be coming home. 3 months passed. It was January 26th, 2010, a Tuesday. Cold and quiet in Albemarle County, Virginia. A farmer was walking his property, an open field off Anchorage Farm, when he noticed something unusual. It wasn't immediately obvious, just a scattering of bones. But the shape, the layout, the horror of recognition. It was Morgan. The remains were badly decomposed. Forensic analysis later confirmed the identity. The discovery shattered any remaining hope. Morgan hadn't just vanished. She'd been taken, killed, and left in an open field just 10 miles from where she disappeared. The scene was grim. Partial skeletal remains. Her Pantera shirt still recognizable. Her black boots. But beyond the obvious, there were few clues. No murder weapon. No clear cause of death. No DNA left behind. At least, none that investigators would speak of. What struck many investigators wasn't just the brutality, it was the careful disposal. She hadn't been buried. She had been placed. As if someone wanted her to be found, eventually. The medical examiner ruled it a homicide, but the how and why remained elusive. The location, rural, remote, was far from the arena and difficult to reach without a vehicle. This wasn't random. Someone took her there. And then, silence again. For years, the Harringtons were left in limbo, holding vigils and asking questions no one could answer. The community mourned, but the trail was ice cold. And then, seemingly out of nowhere, another young woman would vanish. And that's when everything changed. September 13, 2014. 5 years after Morgan vanished, another name made headlines. Hannah Graham, an 18-year-old University of Virginia student who went missing after a night out with friends in downtown Charlottesville. The echoes were immediate. Same town, same profile, same vanishing act. Surveillance footage showed Hannah walking alone, then with a man. Tall, muscular, dreadlocked, calm. That man was Jesse Leroy Matthew Jr. Police tracked him quickly. His car matched descriptions. His story didn't hold. Within days, he fled the state. But when they caught him in Texas and brought him back to Virginia, the pieces began to fall into place. DNA from Matthew linked him to Hannah's case. But it did more than that. It also linked him to Morgan Harrington. Her remains, long silent, had carried evidence no one had seen. Until now. A broken piece of DNA from Morgan's shirt had been preserved, and it matched Jesse Matthew. Investigators now believed Matthew was the last person to see Morgan alive. It was a thunderclap of clarity, but also a deeper question. How had he gotten away with it for so long? Matthew had a history. Accusations of assault during his time at 2 different universities. Women who had come forward, only to be dismissed. A trail of warnings, all ignored. He wasn't hiding in shadows. He was walking among us. And if he was responsible for Morgan, and now Hannah, how many others had slipped through the cracks? It was as if the silence had been protecting him. By 2015, the case against Jesse Matthew Jr. was undeniable. He was charged with the abduction and murder of Hannah Graham. And in 2016, DNA evidence confirmed what the Harringtons had feared. He was also Morgan's killer. Rather than face the death penalty, Jesse Matthew entered an Alford plea. It's a peculiar legal maneuver. He didn't admit guilt, but acknowledged there was enough evidence to convict him. In return, he received 4 life sentences with no possibility of parole. For the families, it was a kind of closure. But not justice. Not really. Because justice would have meant Morgan never had to die in the first place. Gil and Dan Harrington had spent years in the spotlight, turning grief into advocacy. They launched Help Save the Next Girl, a nonprofit dedicated to educating young women about safety, predators, and prevention. They went from parents to public figures, trying to make meaning out of meaningless tragedy. And yet, the ache never left. You could hear it in Gil's voice, even years later. The way she said Morgan's name, softly, as if still afraid of breaking something fragile. The sorrow never left the room. Morgan's story had become part of the town's DNA, a ghost that lingered, a reminder of how quickly safety becomes illusion, and how many systems, universities, law enforcement, communities, can fail, even when the danger is in plain sight. Sometimes, it's not that we weren't looking, it's that we weren't ready to believe. Morgan Harrington's story doesn't end with a conviction. It doesn't end with a name or a sentence, or even a well-meaning nonprofit. It lingers. In the songs she loved, in the fields of Virginia, in the uneasy glances exchanged by strangers walking home alone. There's something uniquely haunting about cases like this. It isn't just the crime, it's the setting, the vulnerability, the way an ordinary night can fracture reality. A concert, a stadium, thousands of people, and still, she disappeared. Her case reminds us of how thin the veil really is, between the life we plan and the shadows we don't see coming. Morgan wasn't reckless. She wasn't naive. She was like so many of us, just trying to live, and yet it wasn't enough. The world failed Morgan. In policies that prioritized profit over safety, in institutions that overlooked red flags, in a community that assumed someone else was paying attention. There are no easy endings here, no comforting resolutions, Only the hope that in remembering Morgan, we remember what it means to truly look out for one another. So when you go out, when you see someone alone, confused, in need, don't look away. Because someone like Morgan might still be waiting to be saved. Morgan Harrington walked into a night filled with music and never came out the same. We talk about monsters hiding in the dark, but what if the real danger waits in plain sight, smiles at you, holds the door open, offers you a ride? What happened to Morgan isn't just one family's tragedy. It's a warning echoing through time. A reminder that some stories don't fade, they repeat. And I can't stop wondering, not just about Morgan, but about all the others. The missing, the voiceless, the ones who never made it home. I'm Crime Uncoded. If this story unsettled you, good. Let it linger. Let it haunt. That's how we remember the forgotten. Subscribe for more stories that dig deeper, stay longer, and question louder. Until next time, stay curious.